First contact. The wind outside howled like a beast in mourning, raking ice crystals across the metal skin of Outpost Thule. Dr. Elias Varn stood at the observation window, mug of half-warm coffee in hand, watching the endless expanse of white swirl and shift under a gray-pink sky. Solitude had its charm, until the silence started whispering back. He wasn't meant to be here alone. The rest of the research team had pulled out 3 months ago due to budget cuts, leaving Elias behind to continue data collection on microbial life buried in the subglacial crust. He didn't mind. Most people annoyed him. Besides, the data was pure gold. Still, even isolation had its limits. That's why, when the proximity alarm beeped, a dull, unimpressed sound that rarely went off, his heart thudded against his ribs. Elias hurried to the console. A faint bio sign, maybe 100 meters from the outpost. Not human. Not any known life form in the catalog. Must be a sensor glitch, he muttered, but he was already suiting up. Caution warred with curiosity. Curiosity won. The wind nearly knocked him over the moment he stepped outside, but the signal was clear. His HUD tracked it with a pulsing that led him down a shallow crevasse, where the snow had drifted oddly. Then he saw her, half buried in ice, motionless. Humanoid, but not human. Skin a pale lavender, like bruised moonlight. Hairless, slender, wearing some sort of tight-fitting bio-suit, torn, flickering with dull light. Her eyes were closed. Her lips moved faintly. Hey! Elias dropped to his knees, checking for a pulse, strong but irregular. Her skin was ice-cold. He activated the emergency blanket, wrapped it around her, and hoisted her into his arms. As he turned back toward the outpost, she whispered something. A word, soft, in a language his translator barely caught. Warmth. He laid her on the medical table and set the vitals monitor to work. Her core temperature was dangerously low, and the suit she wore was leaking power. He applied a thermal pad to her chest and hands, adjusting the room temp until sweat beaded on his forehead. She didn't wake for another hour. When she did, her eyes opened, large, iridescent like liquid amethyst. She flinched, staring at him with wild intensity. Elias raised his hands in a peaceful gesture. It's okay, he said gently. You're safe. No one's going to hurt you. She said nothing, just looked at him. Then her gaze drifted to the thermal pad on her chest. She placed a hand over it and whispered again. Warmth. Elias crouched next to her. You keep saying that. Is that what you need? Heat? Comfort? She closed her eyes briefly, as if considering the question, then nodded. Okay, he said. Then warmth you'll get. The next few hours were a blur of cautious tending. She didn't speak more than a word or two, and when she did, the translator barely caught fragments. But she watched him closely and never tried to leave. He offered her soup. She didn't eat it, but held the cup in both hands, as if the heat itself was a gift. When the power flickered, just a brief surge from the geothermal line, she flinched violently and curled in on herself. Elias noticed. Her reaction wasn't about fear of cold. It was something else. That night, he set up a cot for her near the reactor vent, the warmest place in the station. She lay there, silent and still, her eyes open but distant. Elias leaned against the wall across from her, jotting notes in his tablet. Unknown species. Intelligent. Humanoid. Possibly engineered. Translator capturing repeated word. Warmth. Possible metaphor? She turned her head and looked at him, as if reading his thoughts. Then she said it again, but softer, with a tone that almost sounded hopeful. Warmth. Elias paused. This wasn't about temperature. Not really, but he didn't understand what it was about. Not yet. Between words, Elias woke to the sound of soft footsteps, barely a whisper on the outpost steel floor. The station lights had dimmed to their night cycle glow, but the figure moving near the workbench was unmistakable. She was awake. Really awake this time. The alien girl, he still didn't have a name for her, stood studying one of his holographic diagrams. Her slender fingers hovered above the projection, cautious, as if afraid to break it. She turned when she heard him stir, eyes wide and uncertain. You can look at anything, Elias said, voice hoarse with sleep. I don't mind. She blinked slowly, then turned back to the diagram. It was a double helix structure, rotating slowly above the bench. Human, she said, pointing to it. Her voice was soft, uncertain. Elias sat up, surprised. Yeah, that's right. Human DNA. She tapped her chest, then drew an awkward spiral in the air. Her lips moved again. Not human. No, you're definitely not, Elias murmured, sitting at the edge of his cot. But you're trying to talk. That's good. He pulled his translator module off the charger and walked toward her slowly, like he would a scared animal. She didn't flinch this time. He held it out. This might help us talk better. May I? She tilted her head, then nodded. The module attached easily near her jaw, syncing with her unique physiology. Within moments, the device hummed, and a small status light turned green. Can you say something? He asked. She looked at him, then wrapped her arms around herself and spoke one word. Comfort. Elias froze. Not warmth this time. Comfort, he echoed. Is that what you meant before? Her eyes searched his face. Your place is comfort. No cold. No fear. The translator was catching more now. She gestured to the room, to the cot, the heat, even to the cup of soup still sitting near the vent. Comfort, she repeated. Elias nodded slowly. I thought you meant warmth, like heat. But you meant safety. She considered his words, then smiled, small and unsure but real. Over the next 2 days, communication improved. They built a rudimentary lexicon using the translator and visual cues. She learned quickly, adapting to English with eerie precision. Her memory was photographic. Her logic sharp. Elias kept a journal. Each note felt like discovering a piece of a lost civilization. Species, unknown. Physiology, advanced. Internal heat regulation damaged. Still requires external warmth. Communication, developing rapidly. Psychological state, signs of trauma. She didn't give him her name. Instead, when he asked, she just said, no name left. Not anymore. He started calling her Solace. The translator rendered it in her tongue as something that made her stop and whisper it back to herself like it was precious. One evening, while they shared silence and a cup of rehydrated tea, the proximity alarm beeped again. Elias moved to the console. The signal wasn't from the planet. It was from orbit. Ship just dropped into high-op mode, he said aloud, more to himself than to her. Big, not human. At the sound of those words, Solace stood abruptly. Her posture shifted, tight, alert. The color in her skin dimmed, like a soft bioluminescent defense reaction. You know them? Elias asked. She nodded once. They come. Take. Reclaim. His gut twisted. Are they looking for you? She didn't answer. But she didn't need to. A message pinged on his comm system. Encrypted, foreign, undecipherable. Solace moved quickly to the console and placed her palm on the surface. A hidden interface lit up, clearly meant for her kind. Translate, she said, and the translator complied. Surrender subject. Unit 6-7A. Return for reprocessing. Resistance is futile. Elias stared at the screen. His heart pounded. They think you're what? Property. Her gaze didn't meet his. Tool. Weapon. Cold thing. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. But you came here asking for comfort. You wanted to be safe. I wanted to feel warm, she said softly, then placed a hand over his chest. Here. It hit him then. Warmth wasn't about temperature. It was about connection. About freedom. They won't take you, Elias said. Not without a fight. Her eyes glistened, and for the first time, she didn't just whisper warmth. She whispered hope, what she really meant. The alien warship hung above the sky like a predator, black, angular, and patient. From the outpost's main console, Elias watched it orbit silently, broadcasting the same message every hour. Surrender Unit 6-7A. No harm will come if compliant. Resistance is futile. Solace sat curled in the corner of the station, her arms wrapped around her knees. She stared at the floor, unmoving. Since the ship's arrival, she hadn't spoken much. Elias paced, the hum of the outpost generators like a nervous heartbeat under his feet. They want you back, he muttered, more to break the silence than anything. Like you're a piece of stolen tech. She didn't respond. He crouched beside her. Is that what you are? A tool? Her head turned slowly. They made me. Grew me. But I left. Escaped. Yes. Her voice cracked slightly. We do not choose. We serve. We are comforted with commands. Warmth is forbidden. Elias blinked. Wait. Comforted with commands? They thought obedience was kindness. She nodded once. Cold logic. No pain. No fear. But no choice. Elias stood and turned away, trying to control his growing rage. That's not comfort. That's control. Solace tilted her head. Then what is comfort to humans? He turned, eyes sharp. Freedom. Choice. The right to be more than what someone else designed you to be. For a moment, she just looked at him. Then she stood, slowly, and stepped closer. Then you were warm. You gave me freedom. He swallowed hard, suddenly aware of the depth behind her words. This wasn't just survival. It was transformation. For her, warmth was an identity she was only beginning to claim. The outpost wasn't made for defense. It was a science station, low security, low profile. But Elias had rigged what he could, sealed hatches, overcharged the geothermal vents, rewired the power grid to act as a localized EMP burst if needed. He had maybe one shot to make the warship back off. You don't have to fight, he told Solace while they prepped a crude defense system together. I could try to hide you. Tell them you're gone. She looked up from the coil of thermal cable she was helping him tie off. They will not believe. They will search. They will burn. Her voice didn't carry fear, only certainty. Elias set the cable down. What do they do to ones like you when they find them? She hesitated. Erase. Reformat. Take the warmth away. That sealed it. The ship made its move at dawn. Elias stood at the observation window, watching 3 dark streaks descend through the sky. Drones. Sleek, fast, and clearly not meant for diplomacy. They landed near the outpost perimeter with terrifying precision. He turned to Solace. Ready. She nodded, but there was a strange calm in her eyes. Not fear, not even anger. Resolve. The first drone tried to breach the main entrance. Elias triggered the vent trap. Superheated steam shot out in a violent blast, melting part of its outer shell. It staggered, screeching electronically, then collapsed. The second tried the roof. Elias rerouted the power grid through the hull plating, electrocuting it mid-climb. But the third drone breached through the lab wall, its clawed limbs smashing equipment and sending sparks flying. Solace stepped forward. Her skin began to glow, patterns of pulsing light forming across her body, veins of bioenergy. She raised her hand, and the drone froze mid-motion, quivering. A low hum filled the room. The lights flickered. The drone shuddered violently, then fell to the floor dead. Elias stared, breathless. What did you do? Her glow faded. She looked tired but standing tall. I stopped being a tool, she said quietly, and chose to be something more. Later, after the smoke cleared and the warship retreated, either scared off or simply calculating the cost wasn't worth it, Elias sat by the reactor, the heat on full blast. Solace sat beside him, close, but not quite touching. They'll come back, he said. Yes, she replied. Then we'll be ready. She turned to him, eyes softer than he'd ever seen them. You did not run. Neither did you. She reached out, hesitated, then rested her hand over his. You gave me warmth, she said. But now I know what I really meant. Elias looked at her, heart catching in his chest. What did you mean? She smiled. Not a mimicry, but a real one. I meant you. Humanity means fire. The silence after the battle was heavy, not peaceful. Smoke curled from the outpost's breached wall, scorched circuits sparking like fireflies in the dark. The warship hadn't launched a second wave. For now, they were safe. But Elias knew it was only a matter of time. He knelt beside the reactor core, hands blackened with soot, welding a temporary fix to the heat vent. Without the outpost's warmth, Solace wouldn't survive this world's cold. And now, neither would he. Across the room, Solace stood motionless, her glowing patterns dim and fading. She hadn't spoken since disabling the last drone. Her silence wasn't fear, it was contemplation. He glanced at her. You used yourself like a weapon. She turned her eyes toward him. I was made to be one. And now, she hesitated. Now I choose. Elias sat back, the welder dropping from his hand. He looked at her fully, taking in the contradiction she embodied, constructed, but alive. Engineered, yet free. What do you choose to be? Solace stepped closer, the firelight dancing across her features. Something my makers never imagined. By nightfall, they'd sealed the station, rerouted power, and re-rigged their defenses with the wreckage from the drones. The warship remained silent, drifting above like a watchful god. They're calculating, Elias muttered, deciding if we're worth the effort. Solace stood beside him at the console. They will return, and next time with more. We can't hold out forever. No, she said quietly. But we don't have to. She placed her hand on the console and interfaced with the system again, her biosignal flickering into the station's network. What are you doing? Elias asked. I'm broadcasting a message. Not to them. She looked at him. To yours. You're calling Earth? Yes. Your species should know what you found here. He frowned. You sure? They might not understand you either. They might treat you the same way. She smiled faintly. But you didn't. One human was enough. Hours later, the message went out. A tight beam quantum burst straight toward Earth, encrypted with Solace's help. It contained everything. Her genetic code, the drone wreckage, footage of the fight, and one final image, Solace standing beside Elias, both looking into the camera. The title of the file? She wanted comfort. She found humanity. When dawn broke again, the warship was gone. No attack. No second wave. Just emptiness overhead, and a sky that felt somehow wider. Elias sat near the reactor, sipping lukewarm coffee, watching Solace as she rested. The color had returned to her skin. Her eyes were alert, peaceful. You think they gave up? He asked. No. They paused, she said. But something changed. Because we fought back. No. She turned toward him. Because I stopped being what they expected. Elias nodded. Guess that's something humans are good at, too. She studied him. You risked everything. For me. I didn't plan to. You weren't just some guest or refugee. You became real. Important. A beat passed in silence. She reached into her chest pocket, one he hadn't even realized she'd made, and pulled out a small object. It was a carved piece of alloy, shaped crudely like a flame. One of the drone fragments. I made this. I want to remember. Remember what? That fire isn't just destruction, she said. It's warmth. It's change. She handed it to him, and he took it gently. Elias looked down at the flame in his hand and realized something. This wasn't just a rescue or a survival story. It was a beginning. Weeks later, a message returned from Earth. A diplomatic ship was en route. They'd seen the footage. They wanted to meet her, and more like her, if they existed. Elias read the message aloud, glancing over at Solace. They want to talk, he said. Solace smiled. Then let's teach them what warmth really means. He stood beside her, watching the new stars rise on the horizon. No longer alone. No longer tools. No longer cold. She'd asked for comfort. But what she really meant was freedom. And in the end, humanity gave her that. Not with technology. Not with orders. But with fire.